Hello, BookTube. I'm hoping that I'm remembering how to do this correctly. It's been a while since I did a Stevestream. Let's make sure that all of our settings are correct. Yes. Uh, so I'm here because, well, quite a few are going to know already what the reason is. The more astute Steve watchers already know that almost certainly I am doing the Steve stream because I am avoiding a deadline. And you are correct. But it could also be fun, right? It could also be fun. Like, for instance, I thought we'd go over in a little more for my opening throat clearing. I thought we'd go over a little more detail the books that I just got. I just got a pile of books from the Brattle Bookshop. I got have this right here at my hand. My Kindle is right at my hand. I just finished another Nero Wolfe novel. There are a couple of novels there in the in the first 10, where Rex Stout intentionally breaks the pattern that he set. The pattern of these books is there's Nero Wolfe, who's north of 300 pounds. He's an enormous guy. He is not described as simply fat. He is just enormous. He doesn't like to move. He has a brownstone, and it's by the river, and everybody comes to him. In the earliest novels, it is laughable when a pompous client tells Archie Goodwin, Nero Wolfe's Man Friday and trusted confidant, have Wolfe here at 3:00. It's laughable because Wolfe doesn't go anywhere. People that want his services come to him. Even people that don't want his services come to him. He doesn't go anywhere. A couple of novels there towards number 10, Rex Stout decides, I think probably because in the 1930s he was thinking, does this make my main character what we would call a wimp? A couple of those books he has Wolfe go out and about. Once to a gourmet conference, once to an orchid show. And I understand why he's doing it, but I don't like it. I have to confess, I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. I think it's not because I care about this fictional character all that much. It's because I think some of Stout's narrative magic deserts him when he does that. I just read a Nero Wolfe novel called Some Buried Caesar, which is exactly an example of that, where Nero Wolfe and Archie Goodwin are out in the countryside. They are going to an orchid show. And there's a mishap on the road. Archie Goodwin crashes their car into a tree, and there's anywhere around. They need to find shelter and get some help for the car. And they see a house in the distance, so they both clamber over a fence. None of these details seem real when it comes to Nero Wolfe, that he would even be able to do it. And as they're progressing across the field, they suddenly notice that they have attracted the attention of an enormous bull who is looking at them in a way that bulls have when they are deciding whether or not to be territorial, whether or not to charge. And Wolfe knows that. Wolfe knows that look because in his youth in Montenegro, he had been to bullfights. So he warns Archie, and there is a fence nearby, and there are people watching from that fence. Archie is pretty sure that he can make it, but Nero Wolfe obviously cannot. Archie dives for the fence, and Nero Wolfe climbs up on a boulder. And again, I can't picture him climbing up on a boulder, even to save his life. I can't picture him doing that. But the bull doesn't attack either one of them. But later, in the end of the first chapter, the bull is found nudging around and pushing around a dead body of one of the characters that we get introduced to early in the book. And the natural supposition is that the bull killed the dead body, but Nero Wolfe happens to be physically on the scene and is able to know that the bull certainly did not. He's able to deduce this. And it's a pretty good story. There's one moment in the novel, late in the novel, where Rex Stout obviously wants to show that not only can Nero Wolfe actually walk around if he wants to, but that he can think on his feet. He's not an action hero like Archie Goodwin, but he can be good in a tight corner. Saves Archie's life, basically, or his freedom in a tight corner. I guess that is important in the 1930s for a writer to do, but not only did I not like that, but also the main plot being about the bull when I got to the end, I had an expectation about that animal. I had an expectation that Rex Stout would not kill that animal. And I don't want to spoil the book, but I will say that the novel was a revelation to me about how much that expectation is a product of 21st century reading fiction. It is so thoroughly a product of reading fiction in the 21st century that if there's a cute little thing or a weird innocent little animal or a character with an odd quirk, they will be saved. The writer will save them. So it was a great the whole. I don't know. I don't like Wolfe being out of his element, and then the book right after that dunks us immediately into Wolfe's personal past 50 years ago and into Montenegrin politics. I know that was probably a lot more febrile in the 1930s, but it did nothing for me at all. Nothing at all. So there's that's why this was in my hand. But I thought we could go over like some of these books. Where am I going to put my beloved Kindle? I don't want anything to happen to it. It's more important to me than anything. Like for instance, these Parkman books. I got his 2-volume history of the French and English in America, which is built on the long narrative history of the fact that for a long time the French and the English, who are at war with each other, used the new country, this new continent, as by proxy ground, as basically their Vietnam, and like Vietnam, enlisted the natives on either side. And Francis Parkman very acutely saw that is a perfect grounds for a gigantic narrative. That is a perfect place to plunk a narrative. It does. I was very tempted to sink into. Excuse me. I was very tempted to sink into these last night right away, but instead, none of you are going to be surprised by that. I sunk into this instead. A Million a Minute by Hudson Douglas. I sunk into this instead because it is just so. I mean, this isn't that far off from when Rex Stout wrote his earliest Nero Wolfe novel. It's not that far off. Rex Stout certainly read this author and maybe envied this author's commercial success. So anyway, but now it's occurring to me as I go through the Stevestream that there's no way that we could do this. I meant going through these books in detail to be a bit of a throat clearing, but it would be much more of a throat clearing, and this can't be a long Stevestream. I was going to go through these books and talk about each one of them in turn, a little more detail than I did in the Brattle Hall that I did, and I was also going through the LA Times book list. The LA Times did a book list of the 30 best books of the last 30 years, I think, fiction and nonfiction. And I was going to go through that, but there's no way that we have the time for that. So let's. It looks to me from my control panel here that there are 6 people here. 6 people watching is good. So let's go to the chat and see what you all have to say, because it's been a while since the Stevestream, and also I've noticed in my emails, I guess on comments and videos as well, but in my emails I've noticed that in the last 2 weeks I've gained some new subscribers, people who are brand new to the channel. They've never encountered it before. So 9,000 videos. They're brand new to it somehow or other. We've got to, all of us booktubers anyway, have got to remember the booktube is constantly showing new people, finding new people to watch us. So let's see what we have here. See if I can remember how to do a Stevestream chat. I was on a chat. I think it was with Randy and Christopher Russell. Somebody told me recently, whoever it was, that there's a way for me to fiddle with the settings here so that you can see the chat in the replay video that posts on my channel. I have no idea how to do that, none at all. And I never have known. And since I knew I didn't know, I've just got into the habit of reading every comment out loud. So I will just continue to do that. David Bergen is first. Hello, Steve. Did you end up reading the new translation of the Odyssey? David Bergen. I got the new translation of the Odyssey yesterday. Also, a few weeks ago, you were talking about how your feelings on translated works were changing. How has that progressed? It fluctuates. The change that I was talking about that Dave is referring to is that I am starting to just systematically lose patience with translation. And that feels weird. That feels like such a sea change that I don't really want to admit it. I love translations as things on their own, as kinds of writing on their own. And I should continue to do that. Of course, I should continue to do that. 2/3 of the new translations that come into the American book market every year are from works I cannot read in the original. So, of course, I should continue to value the art of the English language translation. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know exactly why I'm starting to feel that way. I've been trying to trace back to patient zero of what was causing that, and that feeling fluctuates. Some days, some weeks, I'm perfectly eager for translations. Others, I'm not. Was it something this year? It was. It was something this year. It was in February. Uh oh, I think I know what it was. I think I read uh part of a prospective. I don't even know that it's upcoming. I don't know that it's been sold. Part of a prospective new translation of The Scarlet and the Black by Stendhal. And all it made me do is pine for Stendhal. It's pine to read him without anyone else bumbling all over the place. Oh, and actually, I also felt a variant of that same thing with The Man in the Iron Mask, the new Ellsworth translation from Dumas. I also felt a variant of that, even though that translation is very good. But right now, it's not progressing anywhere. I'm trying to control it. Jed Donahue says, "Will you be continuing with April Marillion?" I will. I will. I didn't today. I got a little leery there for a while there. For a few days in a row, I was giving you 5, 6, 7, even 8 videos in one day. And that spooked me. It didn't seem to spook any of you, but it spooked me. Uh, Patrick says, "Hello, Steve. What's your opinion of Fitzgerald's Aeneid?" I like it in a starchy kind of way. Boy, oh boy, it's on weak ground when we're talking about that phase that I'm in with translations. But as a work by Fitzgerald, I like it. Tolstoy 111, lots of new people questions. Well, right. There are lots of new people I mentioned there are lots of new people who found my channel and who may not know the rules. The rule number one in a Stevestream or anywhere else is don't ask a have you read question. Just don't do it. But since there are new people here, I feel certain that we will get have you read question. Ryan says, "At least nobody started with have you read." Yes, it's bound to happen. Tolstoy 111 says, "Give him time." Daniel Blake says, "Oh, a Stevestream, what a treat this would be." Hello, everyone. Colombian Thunder says, "Hi, Steve. Hope all is well at Hyde Cottage. Hope all is well. Well, you don't hope it's good. You don't hope it's great. You don't hope some things are good. You don't hope some things are great. Hope all is well. I'm not here. I'm 1,000 miles away. You could burst into flame in front of me and I wouldn't notice. It is just a placeholder for thought. Hope all is well." You could be reading more. Hi, Steve. Is Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy worth a read? Well, it depends on what you mean by worth a read. As a historical curiosity, sure, absolutely. Fruit Jelly says, "Hi, Steve. Will Steve have his shirt on? We shall see." I do. I have multiple shirts on. Pandora B says, "Hey." Daniel Blake says, "We are live. Hello, Steve. Hope you and Bean are doing fine. Hope you're doing well. You're fired." Aaron, the Book Baron. "Evening, Steve. Been reading Pearlstein's Goldwater book. It's good, but the bloated prose drives me crazy." You didn't ask me first, did you? Clarence Beeks says, "Book Hall Militarist Warmonger." Yes, that's me. Yes. Yes, I am. But hopefully I have completely trounced my enemies into silence. Dylan says, "Hi, Steve. Good to see you live again. It's been too long." It has been a long time. I had to remember all the things you're not supposed to do. Right? There's a gigantic button that says press me. Next to it in tiny type, there's a little button that says go live. And if you hit press me, you're thrown out not only of your own live stream, but off YouTube and extradited from your own home state. You have to go to the other one instead because YouTube is a crappy interface. Monet Doyle says, "Hello." Colombian Thunder says, "Unfortunately, I haven't been able to read much lately because my time has been spent either working and job searching, not to mention horrible procrastination. Hope that changes soon." Yeah, this whole work thing that you all talk about. Sounds terrible. So, Kevin JN says, hello, Steve. I'm reading The Bone Tree. Ryan says, is asking a question. Kevin Toll Reads is here, and people say I am long-winded. What do you mean? I just started. Some Okie Dude is here. I just got back from getting new pants. Thanks for the thrilling update. Never wear them myself. I got nothing to hide. BBW Enjoyer. What are your thoughts on Kilmer Garcia being sent to El Salvador prison without trial? Well, I have a lot of thoughts on the subject. He wasn't sent without a trial. He wasn't just sent without a trial. He was also sent without any due process at all. The trial is the end of due process, not the beginning. He wasn't sent with any due process at all. And prison is a rather polite way of saying where he was sent. I have a lot of thoughts on the subject. A lot of thoughts on this whole subject. The subject that we saw in this country, if you were watching the news, the dictator of America met with the dictator of El Salvador in the Oval Office of the White House. And the dictator of America was just pettily, stupidly, rancidly attacking his own press. Now, these people are sick. They love criminals. They're sick. I hate them. Which would be bad enough. But then, of course, because both of these dictators are imbeciles, they were caught on a live camera with the dictator of America saying, you know, I've been disappearing brown people, basically. He doesn't say this, but I've been disappearing brown people who have paperwork issues of one kind or another, because there is paperwork. But the next is the homegrowns. It was Trump announcing that he intends to just start disappearing citizens. And yet, even though that was done live, that was recorded live in the White House, 90% of this country will be absolutely white-faced shocked when it happens next week. Must read more. I've only read the first Nero Wolfe novel, so I can't even imagine Wolfe leaving his house. I know, and I've now seen it in the I'm reading them in order because I want to see how they change over time, and it's now happened twice for me. Once to an orchid show, and once to oh my God, what was the other? Well, no, actually, it's happened 3 times, because at one point there's a young guy who gets Wolfe to leave his home in order to interview people on the spot by appealing to him with a note signed by all the foremost orchid growers in New York. And I know that it happens later because I did read one of these books out of order. But I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Let's see here. Marcel says, hi, Steve. I'm reading the Nosilla trilogy by Agustin Fernandez Milo, and I'm finding it a bit pretentious so far. I don't know it. Daniel Blake says, I am from Balkans, and Montenegrin politics would have me eye roll as well. It was just, I know I could just picture Rex Stout calling up the Brentanos and imperiously ordering 30 books and having some poor kid drive them out to his farmhouse or whatnot. I could just picture it. Reeked of research. And some buried Caesar about prize-winning bulls and their offspring and how they're rated. That also reeked of research too, but it was better integrated. The Montenegrin book was oh God. Oh my God. It was all just shoveled on there in a way that it didn't work at all. Not at all. Kevin Toll Reads is back. I will say that we are all thinking, can you just be quiet and show us the cute dog? She's right next to me. She's right there. She's right there. Really not feeling like doing much. Eric says, hi, Steve. So many books land on your doorstep. Do you ever abandon a book? Something you can't finish, and why? I almost never abandon a book. No. For 2 main reasons. One is logistical, which is that I read a lot. I read a lot. I have about 18 hours in my day. In an average day, I have about 18 hours. And of those 18 hours, I read probably 10, 11 of those hours, just solely reading. 10 or 11 of those hours, maybe even a little more some days. If it's raining, it was raining here for the last 5 days. I got a huge amount of reading done. That's the logistical read. And then there's a personal reason, which is that every time I open a new book, I am just thrilled from head to toe with the possibilities. I am a kid in a candy store when I open a new book. That feeling has never gone away. It has never lessened for me. And between those two things, there really isn't a call for me to abandon a book. I really don't do it. Oh, the chat jumped right when I was at Monet Doyle. Let's go find her. Let's go back up and find her. Oh my God, look at the size of this chat. How can there be 6 people here? Oh, 13 people we're up to now. I'm reading The Love Shack by Laurie Foster. Sarah mentioned it in one of her vlogs. She did, yes. David Bergen is back. I've been watching your Dude Bro videos and learning what that means to you. I want to test what I've learned. Kerouac's On the Road is painfully Dude Bro. Right? Yes, it is. Very much so. Yes, it is one of their texts. Siva Bronstein says, I have seen more and more over the last few days that Bill Maher is a twerp, as you stated before, but his dinner with and capitulation to Trump has been surprising. He ain't no George Carlin. Yeah, he's doing the regime's business. He came back to his audience and said, this guy's really nice. Tolstoy 111 says, I recently made a rare dip into contemporary fiction, McEwen's Atonement. Quite good. Do you like it? Yes. If you're going to make a rare dip into contemporary fiction, Atonement is a good place to do it. Absolutely. If you're going, I don't want to get all causey on you here, but if you're, and I don't know if any dude bros are listening, but if you're going to make a dip into contemporary fiction, and by contemporary fiction, I mean the last 50 years, if you want to up your chances of not being disappointed, don't tell Britta I said this, or she will lord it over me until the end of time. Pick a woman. If you barely ever do it and you don't want to be disappointed, you got lucky. But if you barely ever do it and you don't want to be disappointed, pick a woman. Karen P says 90 watching. Oh, that can't be true. Ryan says, Steve, hope it is warming for you and Frida. Are you a fan of Ken Follett? His writing is so simplistic, but he's also able to develop some complex ideas. I'm enjoying his newest about Stonehenge. I am generally a fan of his. Yeah. He is prone to patches of very lazy writing where it's just plodding along. And I have to say, if you read early 20th century or, pre-mid 20th century crime fiction, James M. Cain, Margaret Millar, Rex Stout, you see what prose is like when there isn't any dragging, when there isn't any just showing up, and it can be really good. Even Jim Thompson. Jay McPalmer, hi Steve, you seem to enjoy so many of the books you read in all kinds of genres, but I was wondering if you have any books that you absolutely detest. Oh yeah, there are plenty of books that I detest. Plenty. The ones that are just dumb, the ones that just show up, the ones that do almost nothing, the ones that are really bad. Or coming up, I mean, the end of this year and also all of next year, and also not to gloom things up, but also for the rest of time in the US market, evil books, actively evil books. Those also I detest. And I'm going to have to come up with a fully fleshed out reading philosophy for 2025 and 2026. It's at the end of 2026, I guess, that the regime will finally get, this is all, attention filters down in a fascist dictatorship. It's at the end of 2026 that the attention will have filtered down to fish as small as me, at which point I won't have to come up with a philosophy for not reading fascist MAGA books. I won't have to do anything like that. That won't be part of my life. Connor Thompson says, hi Steve, do you have an opinion on Samuel Beckett? For me, he is the greatest writer of the post-war 20th century. Jason Harrigan, blessed be his name, was a booktuber for a long time ago. I loved his channel. And he is still alive, by the way. So you don't send condolences to the west of Ireland. But he loved Beckett. And for a long time, I didn't love Beckett at all. And I don't still love his writing. But it's the magic of BookTube. When you see somebody talk about books, watch a video of them, in Jason's case, started Voxering and actually met in person last year, you start to reconsider those opinions, no matter who you are, unless you're Harold Bloom. You start to reconsider those opinions. So I went back to a lot of Beckett, and I still didn't like it all that much, but I also read biographies of him, which is my way of reintroducing myself to a subject, and quite a few biographies that I really liked. afraid I haven't warmed up to his prose, unfortunately. Fruit Jelly says, Steve, should I learn watercoloring or read and write more? You should write more. TW says, I've been loving your Mr. Scarborough family read aloud. It has been a lot of fun. It has been a lot of fun. And I get a lot of emails about it. I am really surprised at how many people are doing the Mr. Scarborough read aloud with me instead of reading ahead. That is amazing to me. Just amazing. Uh, let's see here. Kevin J.N. says, how's your friend Sam doing? Those chats you two post are always good. And Deb. They're both doing fine. BBW Enjoyer says, is Stendhal underrated? I don't know how he's rated. In the English-speaking world, I don't know how he's rated. I think he's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I'm wondering if... I don't want to badmouth a friend. I'm wondering if just reading an inept translation is what started to sour me on translations just in general, which would not be fair, because there are a number of high-profile translations coming out this year. Mendelssohn's Odyssey is just a start. There was also Amir Hamza in a new translation, and also the Shahnameh, and more to come. There are a couple of big translation things coming out later this year. Fi says, hi, Steve. I've been in a reading funk for such a long time due to health issues, but have just started reading The Plot by Jean Korelitz. Well, that's sorry to hear about the health problems. That's not good. Health problems are bad enough, but health problems that derail your reading, those feel extra cruel. Lou G says, am I remembering correctly that the Ellsworth edition of The Three Musketeers is what you prefer? Very much so. Yeah, all of him. All of his Dumas. And I didn't mean to downplay his Man in the Iron Mask. It's excellent. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes I've gotten short-tempered with any translator. Basically anyone at all. A View from the Bar is here. I just watched a fascinating video comparing all the differences among Star Trek the Motion Picture's theatrical, expanded, and 4K release. How do you feel about these iterations? I don't know about the 4K release. I know the expanded one, but I know the theatrical version inside and out. And I'm not able to judge it critically as a movie. Definitely not. I know, objectively speaking, I know it's a bad movie, but I'm not able to judge it that way because of how long I waited, how long we all waited for something, anything, and to get a gigantic big screen movie that was beautiful. I'm not able. I smile whenever I think about it. Brian Considine, but are you aware of a loophole for the have you read? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. You have seen from this Stevestream and many others that if I am not familiar with the book, I will blurt that right out. Won't let the conversation go on as if I am. I'll blurt it right out. Gola Poinda says, hi, Steve. I'm reading The Black Cloud by Fred Hoyle. Enjoying it so far. What did you think of it? I didn't like it. Follow Smoke says, been reading Russian translation by Pevian Volkonsky. I'm annoyed that I bought several of their books because after looking into it, they're my least favorite Russian translators, really bad. Well, it always pays to go to your library or your bookstore and try a whole bunch of translations in a row. It always pays to do that at your library, or if you're going to do that at your bookstore, whether you're doing it with Russian translations or Bible editions or whatnot, just remember to put them back where you found them. But yeah, I know people who don't like their translations at all of the Russian. Fee says, please continue to read the comments. I wish everyone on a live did that. Well, I don't have any choice because I don't know how to do the setting of showing the chat. Christina Alvarez says, hi, Steve. I have really enjoyed your bookshelf tour videos of your little book room. It's such a treat to see your favorite books. Yeah, we've got a ways to go in there. I pack a lot of books into that little space. Aslan says, hello. I was just watching the new book of the week. Yes. Oh, did Jeff post it? We did another book of the week. I meant to do a promotion video for it. I'll have to do that tomorrow. I'll put that on tomorrow's batch of videos. You know, what Aslan is referring to, for those who might not know, is Cedarburg Public Library Radio in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. We do a show once a week, Books of the Week, my producer and I, and we have a blast. We have an absolute blast doing it. So Good to know that Jeff has a new show up. And in this show, we pretty much made a promise that in next week's show, the fiction section, the B block, will be Daniel Steele. So you now know at least one part of that show coming up. Some Okie dude says, I can just see you going around your house in your underpants, Steve. LOL. Underpants? Like I said, I've got nothing to hide. Never understood underpants at all. even when social conventions forced me to wear pants, I've never understood underpants at all. I have a feeling that they're really popular because a lot of you have an active sense of touch, and a lot of you men, it's never more active than right down there. But I don't have an active sense of touch anywhere. So Kevin says David Baldacci was on Morning Joe this morning promoting his latest book. I was wondering what your thoughts of Baldacci. Is he worth reading? I've never found him all that much worth reading. I know that Kevin Toll likes him a lot more than I do. I've never found him all that much worth reading. And I have a whole bunch of other thoughts about him that don't have anything to do with literature because he went on Morning Joe. History is going to be bitterly harsh with people who went to Berchtesgaden. They always are. Americans don't believe that. Americans think that they are exempt from history, but they are not. Joe and Mika went to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee, quite literally. The rumor is that it was literal. Bend the knee to a fascist dictator. So if you're going to book on their show, then you're saying, well, yeah, it's a shame about American citizens being abducted by men in black vans and taken off to be tortured to death. But I got a book to promote. Anyway, Constance Campbell says, hi, Steve. I was just thinking, what does Steve think of classic Who versus the Who reboot? So you were just thinking that, and you're telling me that, or are you asking me that? Because it doesn't look like it. I can tell you what Steve thinks anyway. Of course, Steve loves the classic Who, especially the Fourth Doctor, and loved the Who reboot in a lot of ways. Loved the Who reboot, including Peter Capaldi, who I think has edged out Tom Baker as my favorite Doctor. And again, here I am not being on one end woke. I am not being on the other end anti-SJW. I am simply stating what anyone but the people who drunk the Kool-Aid will admit. And then after Peter Capaldi, the show went to hell, became absolutely stupid, became far left ideologue sloganeering, and is now utterly ridiculous, and is being rewarded by being ridiculous by getting canceled. Doctor Who is going to get canceled, which you wouldn't have thought was possible after 60-something years. You wouldn't have thought it was possible. But before Doctor Who before the Doctor became first a woman and then an unbelievably gay man, I loved it. The show, loved it. I wasn't a big fan of the boy doctors, the back-to-back boy doctors. They were, I know I'm flying against fan wisdom here, but Matt Smith and David Tennant are both bad actors. They're really bad, really, really bad, really loud and stupid and hammy in a way that I know the Doctor is anyway, but I wasn't a fan of either one of them. But I have genuinely liked the reboot, or Steve has, I should say. Tolstoy 111, other recent reads, Agnon's The Bridal Canopy had my fill long before it ended. Do you like it? No. Oh, no, the chat jumped. Oh, all right, let's go back to Tolstoy 111. There we go. Did you like the Peviarch translation of Three Musketeers? It had a lightness of touch that the Russian stuff he does really lacks. I didn't like it, no. But I don't know if that's just me dealing with translation. Monet says, I'm in the mood for summer romance novels. I'm in the mood for summer. Just summer would be nice. 95-degree days Fahrenheit would be nice. Yesinu says, Steve coming around to Proust. What's next, Steve loving cats? Where, anywhere in this chat did you see Steve coming around to Proust? Where did you see that? Mike Evans, hi Steve, just wondering, do you enjoy reading William W. Johnstone Westerns and Robert Parker, Jesse Stone series? I've been watching your channel since the COVID scare. Okay. All right. 3 things. I don't like the Jesse Stone novels. I think they're kind of dumb, kind of dull. I love number two is that I like William Johnstone. I think his westerns are really, really good. And three, it wasn't a COVID scare; it was a full-blown pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. Colombian Thunder is responding to yes, you knew. Tim's Too Many Books is here. The Ken Follett book that I always recommend is his nonfiction book, On the Wings of Eagles. He was commissioned by Ross Perot to tell how Perot's employees escaped from Iran during the revolution. Right. But your description of the book is the reason I never recommend it. So that's an interesting online conversation to have right there. Laura says, hi, Steve. I really enjoy when you bring up Tolkien on the channel. How did you like Tolkien's description of Isildur's death in The Disaster of the Gladden Fields in Unfinished Tales? How did I like it? I liked it fine. Pandora B says, are there any good translations of the Epic of Gilgamesh? They're a good, I don't know what you couldn't translate it. Fairy's book, things like Fairy's book, where it's you're doing as much as you can with it and staying roughly loyal to roughly some of the things that are in it. I don't have a recommendation of a straightforward translation at all. The Arab Cowboy says, hello, Steve. I was also just watching the new Books of the Week. It always has me laughing out loud, so thank you. It is really funny. Yes, I sounds a little egotistical, like I'm blowing my own horn, but I'm not, because it's chemistry here. And you will enjoy it. Even if you think it's hokey, even if you think it's overdosing on dad humor, you will laugh. You will have fun. We always do. And it is definitely catchy. It is definitely communicative. And next week we'll be back to normal. This week was all wild cards, but next week we'll be back to normal. So we'll have new nonfiction in the A block, new fiction in the B block, and then wild cards. Yesinu says, tried reading Solenoid, but I just couldn't get into it. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood. I doubt the big German book coming out soon, Schadenfreude, however you spell it, will be better. I have a review all lined up of that new book. But you didn't like Solenoid? No? So can I infer from that you think women should have the right to vote? Aslan says, Peter. Oh no, Aslan, where did you go? You mentioned Peter Capaldi. I don't want to miss that quote. The chat jumped again. There we go. Was so good. He had the best monologues. I couldn't continue the show after him. I did continue the show after him just a bit. And there's a thing. There's so much wrong with the Jodie Whittaker Doctor Who. So much wrong. And only one or two good moments anywhere in 4 years of shows. Only one or two good moments. Only one or two good moments. God, I could go on forever and ever. Like, for instance, one tiny little detail. There's a thing called being drunk on regeneration energy. All the doctors do it in one way or another. When they come out of regeneration, they are a little disoriented, or maybe a lot disoriented. They are usually a little disoriented. But you can't have a female character be disoriented, and you can't have a black character be disoriented. So they just weren't. We just didn't deal with that. No, instead, you've got these characters dancing in skirts or telling people I've had an upgrade or whatnot. At the very beginning of the Jodie Whittaker run, I think it was in the second episode, she's reunited with her TARDIS, and it's trying to decide whether or not it trusts this new reality in order to appear. It's skittish, in other words. There's endless far left virtue signaling in every single second of the Jodie Whittaker and the Ncuti Gatwa Doctor. There is endless social media far left virtue signaling in every second of it. The Jodie Whittaker Doctor's 3 prospective companions and herself are standing there in the middle of the wilderness. TARDIS is nowhere around. The Doctor is hoping that the TARDIS will be around. And who hears it? The woman. The human woman. Do anybody hear that? Shut up, you men. Why can't you men stop talking? She hears it before the Doctor does. Utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. But when the Jodie Whittaker Doctor says, I really need you right now, and then calls the TARDIS my beautiful ghost monument. Oh, got me right in both my hearts. But then it ruined it. Then you open the door, it's an absolute nightmare inside, and she says, "I really like it," when it's objectively ugly. Don't get me going on the Doctor. Oh my god. Dylan says, speaking of odious book promotion, have you seen John Green promoting his new book on TB? It seems as if he can hardly contain his glee when talking about the shutdown of US aid and how it helps sell his book. Yeah, I haven't watched as much of it as you have, but I have seen that element of it, which is of course ghoulish. But then I'm not a big fan of the Green brothers. I know that's totally heterodox, but I'm not a big fan of them. Constance Campbell says, yes, Chris Chibnall was a disaster, and then came the beast that is Disney. Yeah. Yeah. You people are determined to get me to talk about the Doctor, and that's not good because I could do it forever. Yes. 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 Russell T Davies reinvented the show, and it was great. And then he and Chris Chibnall have destroyed it. Destroyed it so bad and so gleefully that they were told 2 years ago, stop doing this sort of thing, or the BBC may cancel Doctor Who. Unthinkable, utterly unthinkable, like knocking down Stonehenge. And they didn't care. They were told that 2 years ago, and they didn't care. Some Okie dude says, I have a soft spot for Eccleston. It's too bad he and Davies couldn't get along. I like the Eccleston Doctor mainly because he I'm not counting what's his name? I'm blanking on the name of the actor who transforms into the War Doctor. I'm not counting him for the movie, but I liked Eccleston because he relaunched the modern Doctor, but he also was awful over the top, just awful. And I know it might seem like I'm on very thin ice saying that bothers me when I'm saying that I like Peter Capaldi, but Peter Capaldi seemed to get it. He seemed to know what he was doing in being cartoonish, much like Hugh Laurie on House. But anyway, Aslan is talking to someone else. Steve Bronstein says, Steve, have you gotten on the White Lotus train? No. Colombian Thunder, I think the issue with woke TV film is more so that it often feels pandering and painfully unsubtle rather than it being genuinely about representing people who aren't represented. No, you're right. Right. It's all a lie. It's not about representation. It's all a lie. And who, I ask you, who is being represented by the current Doctor? I ask you. 15, maybe 16 Manhattan meth queens. And that's it. No one else. So 2 million people watching the show, probably another 4 million people or 10 million people who are aware of Doctor Who. And of 4 or 10 million people, you're representing 15 Manhattan meth queens. That's not representation at all. That's you attacking your audience. BBW says, what book reviewers do you recommend outside of Open Letters? Well, there are a whole bunch. There are lots of them. There's a guy who writes for the Wall Street Journal. He reviews fiction for the Wall Street Journal. He's quite good. Timothy Giles says, hello, Steve. How are you and the Bean? I say it's time to give the people what they want, a read-along of Middlemarch. The Bean and I are fine. We are just fine. But a read aloud of Middlemarch, I don't know. I keep thinking maybe we want a shorter book in between this and the next one. Literary Latte says, Steve, what do you think of the Dune movies? I think they're leaden, overdone, largely dumb productions. But it looks like we're going to get 20 of them, so I guess I should shut up about that. SQE is writing all in caps. Is something wrong? Are you having a heart attack? Steve, have you read Peter Green's Iliad and Odyssey? And if so, what are your thoughts? Thank you. So not only is it in all caps, I'm fanning myself with my Kindle here. Not only is it in all caps, and not only is it a have you read question, but it's a have you read question about the Uffen Iliad, translated by Peter Green. So it's a have you read question about my favorite book, in a translation that's years old, translated by an old friend. I guess you could ask if I've read a book about beagles. That might be worse. Sorry. Have you read Peter Green's translation of Homer's Iliad? Okay, I think we have a winner. SQE says, Steve, thank you so much, by the way, for inspiring me to read Virgil and Ovid. Well, that's wonderful. What translations? I'm assuming I didn't inspire you to read them in the original. Jay McPalmer says, I just finished up the... Oh, baby, you're not going to stay over there, baby. You're not. Oh, baby girl. You're not going to... All right, okay, she'll be back. I'm just finishing up The Far Pavilions based on your recommendation for March of the Mammoth. I love the first 3/4, but the war stuff at the ending is so boring. Does it get any better? Does it get any better presumes that I agree with you, and I don't. Age BW, how do you feel about Theodore Sturgeon? Okay, Age BW, I have a question for you. At what point during your typing of a "Have you read?" question did you panic and change it? That's what I want to know. I'm rather fond of most of Theodore Sturgeon. Yes, and who says, I can't stand the video titles of all the major political YouTubers. They all use the same bold verbs and adjectives. Nightmare being latest one, right? Vile subject matter presented so sensationally. Yeah, it's because they don't believe it. Because they don't believe what they're saying to you. They don't believe what they're saying to you. They don't believe it. In other words, they're lying to you. They are lying to you. They don't believe what they're saying. If you listen to a leftist political, or not leftist, I guess, anymore, because there's no left or right when it's fascism. If you're listening to a political commentator and they are telling you that they're making mentions, completely accurate mentions of Trump's Gestapo, of the fact that he's using third-party, non-accredited, non-sworn-in, unidentified men in armor and homegrown, TJ Maxx face masks in order to abduct American citizens and have them killed overseas. Do not believe the Trump propaganda that this tracker app is accurate. Do not believe it. Trump has never, even once, told the truth about literally anything. So, of course, these people are dead. They're not, it doesn't matter what the tracking app says, but if you're listening to these political commentary channels, and they all do it, and they're all telling you about Trump's Gestapo and how this is we're descending into fascism and whatnot, and they're still broadcasting from the United States, then they're lying to you. They don't believe what they're saying. Everyone who is watching the news, who has the ability, should have left by now, but especially vocal critics of the regime. Yeah, but the fact that they all pay the same firm to do their thumbnails is so evident and so insulting. Man in Gray book reviews. Joe Queenan once said that Henry Miller was the most overrated writer of the 20th century. Who would get your vote for that dubious honor? Cormac McCarthy. Follow Smoke says, which history authors are worth reading no matter the subject they write about? Like a fiction author you follow and subject plot are secondary to your confidence in the author's ability? Well, obviously that's not a chat question, right? Because I'm not a typical booktuber. I haven't read 10 historians, right? I've read 100,000 historians. A lot of them are really, really good. I've read 100,000 historians in a number of different languages. So it's not really a chat question. But I can echo Christopher Russell, BookTube's own cartoon hedgehog, who in a video just today praised Dermot McCullough. Dermot McCullough does really, really good work. SQE says, Steve, I'm reading a prose translation of Orlando Furioso. Have you ever read a prose translation of Orlando Furioso? I've read every English language translation of Orlando Furioso, yes, including the prose translation for Oxford. And you're not asking me what I think of it, but better that you read somebody who is trying to replicate the verse play of Ariosto than that you not. And ordinarily, I would say, like in a prose translation of the Iliad or a prose translation of Virgil, I would say, well, since that's almost impossible to do, and since the people who succeed at it usually only succeed at it piecemeal, I would understand if you'd want to read a prose translation. But in this case, the Penguin Classic 2-volume Orlando Furioso does capture that playfulness. So you have an option that's available to you. David Bergen is back. I was surprised to hear you say that movie adaptations are usually better than the books they're based on. Would you opine on that more? Oh, good Lord. Well, I can't opine in a chat, but I've opined on it many, many times. It stands to reason, I think, An author is an ego show, either the ego of the author or the ego of the editor. A movie cannot be, unless you're unlucky enough to be part of an auteur director. It cannot be an ego show. It's going to be a whole bunch of people. They won't all have the same power as the director, but they'll have power enough to affect the end result. And also, authors mostly write bad stuff. Not only bad books, but bad chunks of books. And it stands to reason. The bad stuff in books are usually, unless you've got an author who's bad at plotting, the bad stuff in books is usually going to be the rest of it, the stuff where the author is doing all sorts of authory stuff. And that has to go in a movie adaptation anyway. So it's just not there. You don't have to worry about it at all. And so you don't have to risk it being done wrong. Aslan says, I am reading Eugene Rogan's The Arabs, A History, and really, you say licking it, but I'm assuming you mean liking it. What did you make of it? Then the author's name is not ringing a bell, but I know I've read the book. And I think I even reviewed it. And I believe I really liked it. SQE says, Steve, how many hours do you sleep per night? Well, I'm not planning on it tonight at all, but it's not many hours. I certainly don't do what you people do. I couldn't imagine it. Even when I'm sick, I can't imagine it. That not only do you do it, but you look forward to it. You pine for it. Oh my God, is 6:30 too early? To just become an insensate blob of protoplasm drooling all over your pillow, dead to the world until hours and hours and hours and hours later. Oh my God. Jonah Baby says, thoughts on Ian McEwan? Well, thoughts on Ian McEwan is not a chat question, right? I have more than just a couple of Twitter comments on Ian McEwan. But as I said earlier in the chat, he is really good. When he's good, he's really good. When he's bad, he's inexplicable. Just for the last few weeks, when I go to the Brattle, this used bookstore here in Boston, it has a sale lot outside. You never predict what you're going to find out there. And the last few times that I've been out there, I have spotted a copy of On Chesil Beach by McEwan, which, as you can see, I can't even mention without laughing. I cannot think about that book or see it without chuckling, because I honestly don't have any idea what McEwan was thinking when he wrote it. None at all. Pulp Mortem says, Dr. Y. Well, we won't have to worry about it because the show is going to get canceled. Basically, no one is watching it anymore. So, except the far right neck-bearded quasi-fascists to bash it, and the far left ideologues to say yes, queen. But no ordinary people. We are not watching it at all. And that's despite Disney spending gigantic amounts of money per episode. So it's going to go away. We're going to see a world without Doctor Who. Let's see here. SQE says, Steve, who are your favorite Christian writers? Again, that's not really a chat question. It implies or relies on the assumption that I am a normal booktuber and that I have read 10 Christian writers. I have read 1,000 Christian writers, 100,000 Christian writers, and I've thought I have favorites on a whole bunch of different registers for a whole bunch of them. So it's not possible to do. Constance Campbell says, John Hurt. Right. Well, John Hurt is the war doctor, but the guy that played him in the movie that arguably could say restarted Doctor Who, I cannot for the life of me remember his name. He's shown up a couple of times. He showed up a couple of times in the Jodie Whittaker Doctor. Well, anyway, I can't remember his name, but there's a great episode of the Doctor where we see the scene with the priestesses of Karn where he undergoes regeneration, forced regeneration, and turns into the War Doctor, who is played by John Hurt. Some Okie dude says, who is over the top though? But not Yaz Queen. No. Patrick says, when you read a book from the distant past and the author makes a scientific point that is ludicrous in 2025, does it affect how you view the rest of the book? No, I contextualize it. That's all. Cinephile says, Tom Baker was my first, last, and everything. Well, he was for me too. For the longest time, he was easily my favorite Doctor. And everybody else's favorite Doctor too, since he was on forever and ever and ever. Can you imagine a Doctor sticking around for 10 years now? It would never happen. But I really do think I like Peter Capaldi's Doctor better. I don't know exactly what that is. I'd like to think that it's the strength of his whole run on the show and not just his regeneration scene. If you have ever been trapped here at Hyde Cottage for wine and calzones, you have seen that regeneration scene. I don't know how many times poor David Murphy has seen it. I don't know how many times. I would like to think that I like Capaldi for his entire run on the show and not just for that regeneration scene. Just that. There it is. Silly old universe. The more I save it, the more I need saving. A treadmill. SQE says, Steve, do you believe man can transition into women and vice versa? Or are we trying to make trouble here in the Stevestream? SQE? Are we trying to make trouble? A man or a woman can definitely signal to the outside world and to their loved ones and their nearest and dearest that they feel more comfortable if they are talked about, treated, and act like the opposite sex. That is entirely possible to do. That has always been possible to do. We in America and the rest of the world have largely been tolerant of that. I told the story a few times that I worked with a man in a bookstore who decided he was gone for 3 weeks. We all wondered what was wrong with him. The manager said, look, he's going through personal stuff. He's definitely welcome back here. And when he came back, he was dressed as a woman, looked like a woman, hair different, everything different, body, even movement different. And he was clearly terrified. He was clearly really nervous. He thought, I am risking everything here. I'm risking the goodwill of all these friends I've made for years. And it was absolutely no big deal. Everybody adjusted. One person on the staff did not. One person started making crass comments and they were out. All of us just instantly shut the hell up and get out of here. That's our friend you're talking about. That is entirely possible. And we don't have a problem with that. Normal people don't have a problem with that. Can a man become a woman? Well, your actual question, no, it's not physically possible to change gamete sizes for a man and a woman. That might someday be possible to just genetically resequence someone, but it's not possible now. So the lefties, the old-fashioned Hannah at Hannah's Books lefties, who say trans women are women and mean we should definitely, if they're more comfortable being this way in society, then we should definitely accept that, call them what they want, and treat them that way. Fine. If we're talking the alt left, the far left, the rock throwing, the city burning far left that says trans women are women, that they actually are physically female, no, they're not. And like everything that the far left does and the far right does, they anticipate the problems with the objections to their idiotic positions. They think up a name for it, and then they just use that name to cancel thought. So on the far left, it's biological essentialism. So right now, far left activists, those who are left alive, those who aren't in El Salvador, would say, oh, you're being a biological essentialist. Oh, so that's what you are? Yeah, I am. I believe in biological reality. Yeah, a man is not a woman and cannot ever actually become one. I don't think that's the important issue here. And the important issue is something I think we all agree on, which is that tolerance and courtesy is the rule, should be the rule of the day. That's the far left that has that thought canceller. And what's the far right have? Trump derangement syndrome, TDS. Any criticism of the leader is Trump derangement. Oh, it's just Trump derangement. I don't have to think about it, and neither does anybody else. But anyway, let's. Daniel Blake says, I have been going through Roman poem anthology and have been loving it so much. How's Charles Passage's Horace? Your favorite Horace translations? Horace is not the person to ask about when I'm in the throes of this feeling about translations. Horace is not the one to ask about. Ooh, I don't actually remember Passage. I'm not good with translators' names. And I don't have a favorite Horace translator, I'm afraid. TL says, I remember Star Trek being genuinely representative. Of course it was. Of course it was. Yeah. It's the far left activists back when they weren't in El Salvador were saying that it's evil, that everything is evil, that everything before I got a Twitter account is evil. But of course it was. Yeah, genuinely inclusive. Oh, the chat jumped. Here we go. George